Hey, my name is Caleb Morris. I'm 32 and I fix things for a living. Not the kind of fixing that makes people clap or post about it online. I'm an electrician. I spend my days crawling through crawl spaces, replacing burnt outlets, rewiring old houses that should have been torn down 10 years ago, and telling homeowners that no, their perfectly fine breaker box is actually one spark away from burning their house down. Most nights I come home smelling like copper and dust. My hands stained black no matter how long I scrub them. 2 years ago, I was supposed to get married. Her name was Erin. We had the venue booked, the invitations printed, even picked out the color of the table runners. I thought we were solid. Then, one Tuesday night, she sat across from me at our kitchen table, took off her engagement ring, and set it down between us like it was something that had gone bad in the fridge. I think we both know this isn't right, she said. The problem was, I didn't know. Not until she said it. After that, I got careful. I stopped letting people close. I kept my world small: work, takeout, the occasional beer with guys from the union, and this two-bedroom apartment on the third floor of an old building near Pearl District. The floors creak like they're complaining, the windows stick when it rains, and the kitchen is so narrow you have to take turns standing in front of the fridge. It's not much, but it's mine. And after Erin, mine felt safer than ours ever did. Then Leah Bennett moved into the empty room. She's 29, teaches music part-time at a middle school, and sometimes sings at small events around town. Weddings, corporate parties, the occasional open mic night. She's nothing like me. She sings Motown while she washes dishes, keeps a basil plant on the windowsill that she talks to like it's a person, and once ate cereal out of a salad bowl because, and I quote, regular bowls lack ambition. We've been roommates for 8 months now. At first it was strictly business. We split rent, made a chore chart, labeled our food in the fridge, and agreed not to ask too many personal questions. But living with someone has a way of sneaking up on you. I started noticing things. She drinks chamomile tea when she can't sleep. She stands in front of the mirror practicing smiles before she calls her mom. She leaves yellow, sticky notes everywhere. On the microwave, on the bathroom mirror, once even on my toolbox that said, "Don't die today. The rent is due." And she noticed things about me too. She knows I only make coffee at midnight when something's bothering me. She knows I hate Fridays because that's the day we were supposed to get married. She never says it out loud, but she knows. We never called it intimacy. But it was. That Thursday night, I got home late. It had been one of those days that makes you question why you didn't become an accountant instead. I'd spent 8 hours in the basement of a house near Hawthorne, fixing a wiring job that was done wrong in 2014 and had been slowly cooking itself ever since. The homeowner kept saying, "It still works fine," while the outlets were hot enough to fry an egg. By the time I left, my back hurt, my eyes burned from the dust, and all I wanted was a shower and silence. The apartment was dark when I walked in. Only a thin strip of warm light leaked from under Laya's bedroom door. I heard her muttering something, then the soft sound of a hanger hitting the floor. I figured she was on the phone with her mom again. Those calls could go on for hours. I knocked once, lightly. No answer. I knocked again. Still nothing. I should have walked away. But I was tired and stupid, and I thought maybe she had her headphones in and couldn't hear me. So I turned the handle and pushed the door open just enough to poke my head in. And everything stopped. Laya stood in front of her mirror wearing a deep blue dress that slipped off one shoulder. The zipper was only halfway up her back. Her hair was pinned up messily, a few strands falling against her bare skin. The bedside lamp cast a soft golden light across her shoulder blades and the curve of her spine. She looked like she'd been trying on courage. She spun around so fast the fabric whispered against her legs. I froze with my hand still on the doorknob, every muscle in my body locking up at once. My first thought wasn't, "She's beautiful." It was, "I'm about to get kicked out of my own apartment." I jerked my head to the side so fast I almost gave myself whiplash. "Shit. Sorry, I thought you called me. I didn't mean to. I didn't see anything. I mean, I saw the door. Not you. I'm sorry. I'll just—" "Caleb." Her voice was quieter than I expected. Not angry, not even embarrassed. Just steady. I kept staring at the hallway wall like it had personally offended me. "Yeah?" A pause. Then, softer, "If you already saw, tell me the truth. Is this dress too much?" I turned back slowly, but only looked at her face. She was holding the slipping strap against her shoulder with one hand, trying to smile like this was normal. But her fingers were shaking. She wasn't really asking about the dress. She was asking if she looked ridiculous for trying. I took a breath and made myself really look at her. The dress wasn't too much. It was the opposite. It was the kind of dress that made you realize the person wearing it had spent a long time deciding whether she was allowed to take up space. No, I said, it's not too much. She watched me through the mirror. I kept going before I could stop myself. It's the kind of dress that makes other people feel bad they didn't try harder to be decent when they stood next to you. The words came out too honest, too raw. I wanted to swallow them back the second they left my mouth. Laya went still. Then she laughed, small and shaky, and her eyes looked a little too bright. You always say dangerous things like that? I'm an electrician, I said. Sometimes sparks get loose. She turned around and leaned against the edge of her dresser, still holding the dress up with one hand. For a second, neither of us spoke. The air in the room felt thicker than it should have. Saturday night, I have to go to my sister's engagement party, she said finally. I nodded. Sounds fun. It's not, she swallowed. My mom invited Adrian. I knew the name. I'd heard it through the walls during a few late-night phone calls she thought I couldn't hear. Adrian. The ex who smiled too perfectly and made her apologize for things that weren't her fault. She thinks we should talk like adults, Laya continued, voice flat. Really, she just likes him because he knows how to make everyone think he's perfect. I stayed quiet in the doorway. Laya looked down at the floor, then back up at me. Her smile was thin. I don't want to go alone. I understood before she asked. She tilted her head, trying to make it sound like a joke. So Caleb Morris, the man who accidentally walked in on me half-dressed, want to make it up to me by being my fake boyfriend Saturday night? I should have said no. She was my roommate. We lived together. If this went sideways, there was nowhere to hide. I'd already crossed a line just by opening that door. Saying yes would only make everything more dangerous. But she was looking at me like someone who was tired of having to protect herself all the time. What do you need me to do? I asked. She blinked. You're saying yes? I'm asking what you need. Her voice dropped. Just come with me, sit next to me. Don't let me feel small in front of him. I nodded once. Then I'll go. She let out a breath that sounded like it had been trapped in her chest for months. Then she pointed at the zipper running down her back and tried to smile again. And since you caused this situation, can you zip me up? I stood there like someone had hit me with a live wire. She laughed immediately. I'm kidding. But when she turned around anyway, I still stepped forward. I took the zipper between my fingers and pulled it up slowly, careful not to touch her skin. The sound of the teeth closing felt louder than it should have. When it reached the top, Laya looked at me in the mirror. No teasing left. No more pretending we were just roommates. Just two people standing too close to something neither of us had named yet. I let my hand fall away. Neither of us moved. Outside, rain started tapping against the window like it was trying to remind us the world was still turning. But inside that room, time had gone very still. And I had the sudden, terrifying feeling that I'd just opened a door I wasn't going to be able to close again. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the blue dress, the bare shoulder, the way Laya's fingers trembled when she asked if it was too much. I kept hearing her voice asking me to be her fake boyfriend, like it was the most normal thing in the world. And I kept wondering why the hell I said yes. By morning, the apartment smelled like coffee and something faintly floral. Her shampoo, probably. I found her in the kitchen, already dressed for work, hair still damp, standing on her tiptoes to stick something on the fridge. A bright yellow sticky note. Surviving the engagement party plan below it. 5 bullet points written in her messy handwriting. 1. Don't let Adrian pull me aside for a private talk. 2. Don't let my mom ask too many questions about our relationship. 3. Don't lie with too many details. 4. If I squeeze your hand 3 times, it means save me. 5. If you see I'm about to cry, please tell a stupid story. I read it twice, then looked at her. You really think we need a battle plan? She didn't turn around, just kept arranging the magnets like this was a completely normal Thursday morning. I think we need to survive 6 hours without my mother deciding I'm still in love with my emotionally abusive ex. So yes, battle plan. I poured myself coffee and leaned against the counter. Number 5 says, I have to tell stupid stories if you're about to cry. Is that my official job title now? She finally glanced over her shoulder, one eyebrow raised. You once told a client their outlet had suicidal tendencies. I think you're qualified. I laughed into my mug. That night we sat at the kitchen table with her notebook open between us like we were planning a heist instead of a fake relationship. She'd changed into an oversized hoodie, my hoodie, I noticed, and her hair was piled on top of her head with a pencil stuck through it. She looked tired but determined. Okay, she said, tapping the pen against the paper. How long have we been together? 8 months. We live together. Too real. Fake boyfriends aren't supposed to be that honest. 6 months? Too specific. Recently? Too vague. I sighed and rubbed my face. Laya, we're not robbing a bank. It's one dinner with your family. She looked at me for a long second, then set the pen down. You haven't met my mother. I waited. If she asks why I never mentioned you before, what are you going to say? I thought about it, really thought. Then I answered without planning to, because you wanted to keep something good just for yourself before everyone else started having opinions about it. The kitchen went quiet. Laya stared at the notebook like the words had physically hit her. The pen in her hand stopped moving. Did you just make that up? She asked softly. Yeah. Don't use that line. Why not? She looked down, voice barely above a whisper. Because if you say that, my mom will believe it. And I might believe it too. Neither of us spoke for a while after that. I changed the subject before the air got too heavy. Tell me about Adrian. She closed the notebook slowly. He's handsome, polite, says all the right things at the right time. To my mom, he's the perfect man. Stable, successful, knows how to take care of a woman. And to you? Laya was quiet for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. Then she said, to me, he's the man who made me apologize even when I hadn't done anything wrong. My hands tightened under the table. Don't make that face, she said. What face? The one that wants to punch someone. I have a very calm face. She shook her head. No, your face looks like an old breaker box that's about to explode, but still pretending it's up to code. I laughed even though I didn't want to. She laughed too, and just like that the tension cracked open. We ended up talking for hours. I told her about Aaron, how I'd planned an entire life with someone who had already decided I wasn't it. How the worst part wasn't the breakup, it was realizing I'd been the only one still building something. Laya didn't rush to comfort me. She didn't say, you'll be fine, or she didn't deserve you. She just listened, then said quietly, being left by someone you thought would stay, it makes you doubt your own ability to read people. I looked at her. You understand that too well. She gave me a sad little smile. Adrian didn't leave me. He made me leave myself first. We kept talking. About the small ways people break you without ever raising their voice. About how hard it is to trust your own judgment after someone has spent months making you feel like you're the problem. About how sometimes the quietest damage is the hardest to explain to other people. By the time we looked at the clock, it was almost 1 a.m. The tea had gone cold. The notebook was forgotten. We were just two people sitting across from each other with all the usual walls down. Saturday morning felt strange. I changed my shirt 3 times. The charcoal suit I'd worn to my own almost wedding hung on the back of my closet door like a polite ghost. I stood in front of the mirror wondering if I looked like a fake boyfriend or just a guy who'd been called in to check the electrical panel. Laya knocked on my door. Caleb. Yeah? Can I come in? I opened it. She stood in the hallway wearing the same blue dress from 2 nights ago. Hair pinned up, a few loose strands brushing her neck. Light makeup, red lipstick the color of old wine. She looked beautiful and terrified at the same time. I forgot what I was going to say. She looked me up and down, then reached up and straightened my collar with both hands. This suit isn't as tragic as you said it was. I call it the serious occasion that survived suit. She didn't smile, just kept fixing the collar, fingers brushing against my neck. "Tonight it's good," she said quietly. "You look trustworthy." The space between us disappeared. I looked down at her hands still resting on my lapels. "Is trustworthy good?" She didn't look up. "Tonight it is." My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from her mother lit up the screen. "Adrian's already here. Don't make this awkward for everyone." Laya's face changed the second she read it. I held out my hand. "Let's go." She stared at it for a second. "Are we starting the performance now?" I shook my head. "No, we're just going together." She slipped her hand into mine, and the terrifying part was, it didn't feel like acting at all. The restaurant was exactly the kind of place that tried too hard to look effortless. Old red brick walls, warm yellow lighting, long tables covered in crisp white tablecloths, and rows of champagne glasses arranged like they were part of a military parade. Everything screamed, "We are a perfect, happy family having a perfect, happy celebration." Laya's grip on my hand tightened the moment we stepped inside. Her sister Tessa spotted us first. She was standing near the entrance in a soft pink dress, already glowing with that engaged person radiance. The second she saw Laya, her face lit up. Then her eyes dropped to our joined hands and her eyebrows shot up. She pulled Laya into a tight hug, then turned to me with a curious smile. "So, you're real," she said. "I was starting to think Laya made you up." "I'm real," I answered, though I've been told I have a very convincing fake boyfriend face. Tessa laughed, then looked at Laya again. Something softer passed between them. "Mom's been asking about you all night," Tessa whispered. "Be careful." Laya nodded once, then we moved deeper into the room. Her father Martin was the first to approach us properly. He was a quiet man with kind eyes and a firm handshake that lasted a little longer than necessary. When he finally let go, he gave me a small nod that somehow felt like approval. Her mother, Celeste, was a different story. She stood near the head table in a pearl-colored dress, hair perfectly styled, smile perfectly polite. The second she saw us, her eyes narrowed just slightly, the kind of look people give when they're trying to decide if they've been lied to. "Caleb," she said, extending a hand. "Laya has never once mentioned you." I felt Laya tense beside me. I kept my voice calm. "We've been keeping things pretty private." Celeste raised an eyebrow. "Private enough that you've been living together for 8 months and no one knew?" The air around us seemed to still. Laya's fingers dug into my palm. I looked Celeste straight in the eye and answered without hesitation. "Some things are important enough that you want to protect them from other people's opinions before they even have a chance to form." Celeste went quiet. Laya turned her head and stared at me like I'd just spoken a different language. I could feel her pulse racing through her fingertips. For the next 30 minutes, things were almost normal. We made small talk with relatives, accepted congratulations for Tessa, and sipped champagne that tasted like money. Every few minutes, Laya would give my hand one squeeze, then two, then three, our secret signal system working exactly as planned. Then Adrian walked in. I didn't need anyone to point him out. He carried himself like the room already belonged to him. Tall, sharply dressed, with the kind of easy smile that made people want to like him before they even knew his name. He hugged Celeste like she was family, kissed Tessa on the cheek, and shook Martin's hand with the confidence of someone who had done it 100 times before. Laya's hand went ice cold in mine. Adrian's eyes found us almost immediately. He walked over slowly, that perfect smile still in place. "Laya," he said, voice warm and smooth. "You look beautiful." "Thank you," she answered, voice flat. His gaze slid over to me. "And this must be?" "Caleb," Laya said, "my boyfriend." Adrian tilted his head, studying me like I was an interesting puzzle. "Boyfriend? That's new. I thought you two were just roommates." I extended my hand. "We were. That's how it started." He shook it, squeezing a little harder than necessary. "Be careful," he said, still smiling. "Laya has a habit of turning the men around her into emotional projects." I felt Laya flinch. I kept my voice steady. "I'm an electrician." I know the difference between a wire that actually needs fixing and one someone else deliberately shorted just to blame someone else. Adrian's smile tightened. For a second, the mask slipped. Laya's breathing had gone shallow beside me. I could feel her starting to shrink, the way she probably had 100 times before when he spoke to her like this. But then something shifted. She let go of my hand. I thought she was retreating. Instead, she stepped forward, standing directly in front of Adrian. Enough, she said quietly. The word cut through the low hum of conversation around us. Adrian blinked, surprised. Laya, I was just… No, she cut him off. You weren't. You were doing exactly what you always do. Smiling while you make me feel small. Acting polite while you remind me that I'm too sensitive, too difficult, too much. People were starting to turn and stare. Tessa and her fiancé, Miles, had stopped talking. Celeste was frozen near the champagne table. Laya's voice trembled, but she didn't stop. You never had to raise your voice to hurt me. You just had to make me believe that every time I felt pain, it was because I was overreacting. You never had to control me. You just had to make me doubt myself so much that I stopped trusting my own feelings. Adrian's charming expression cracked. You're making a scene, he said, voice low and sharp. Laya shook her head. No, for the first time, I'm not making a scene. I'm telling the truth. She turned slightly and looked at me. Her eyes were glassy, but her chin was lifted. And Caleb isn't my fake boyfriend, she said, loud enough for half the room to hear. He's the first person in this entire room who never asked me to prove why I was hurting. The silence that followed was deafening. Laya looked back at Adrian, voice steady now. You can call him whatever you want, but he's real. And I'm done pretending I need anyone's permission to choose him. She turned to me fully. Her voice dropped, meant only for me. I don't want you to be my fake boyfriend anymore, Caleb. I want you to stand next to me because you actually want to be here. My chest felt too tight. All the fear I'd been carrying for 2 years came rushing back at once. The fear of believing again, of opening the door, of getting left behind when someone decided I wasn't enough. But Laya was standing in front of me, shaking, eyes full of tears she refused to let fall, asking me to choose her out loud. I stepped closer. I've wanted to be here since before we left the apartment, I said. Her breath hitched. I reached up and gently touched her cheek, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Instead, she grabbed the front of my jacket and pulled me down into a kiss right there in the middle of her sister's engagement party, in front of her mother, her ex, and every person who had ever told her she was too much. The kiss wasn't desperate, it was certain. Like a door finally closing on everything that came before and opening onto something neither of us had dared to name until now. After the kiss, Adrian left. He didn't make a scene. He just grabbed his coat, muttered something under his breath to Celeste, and walked out without looking back. The door closed behind him with a soft click that somehow felt louder than anything else that night. Laya stood in the middle of the room, lips still parted, hands shaking. Tessa pulled her into a tight hug while Martin placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Celeste remained near the champagne table, perfectly still, like someone who had just watched her entire worldview shift and didn't know how to respond. Laya looked at her mother. There was too much in her eyes. Anger, pain, disappointment, and something that looked dangerously close to pity. Celeste finally moved. She walked over slowly, her heels clicking against the wooden floor. I didn't know, she said quietly. Laya's voice was steady but cold. You didn't want to know. Celeste flinched like she'd been slapped. For a moment, I thought Laya might say more. Instead, she just nodded once, then turned to me. Let's go home. The drive back to the apartment was quiet. Laya sat with her hands folded in her lap, still wearing the blue dress, my suit jacket draped over her shoulders. She stared out the window at the passing streetlights, her reflection faint in the glass. When we got home, she didn't go straight to her room. She stood in the middle of the living room, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold something together. Caleb, she said without turning around. Yeah? Do you regret it? I stepped closer. Regret what? Kissing you in front of your entire family? She let out a small, shaky laugh. Getting dragged into all of this, my mess, my family, Adrian. I looked at her for a long moment. I used to think my life was quiet because I'd healed, I said. But really, it was quiet because I stopped letting anyone knock on the door. Laya turned around slowly. I continued. Tonight, you knocked. Pretty hard, actually. With a blue dress and a toxic ex and a family that doesn't know how to listen. But I don't regret it. She stared at me for a long time, eyes glassy. Then she walked over and wrapped her arms around my waist, pressing her forehead against my chest. It wasn't a desperate hug. It was the kind of hug someone gives when they've been carrying too much weight for too long and finally found a place to set it down. I don't want to sleep alone tonight, she whispered. But I also don't want everything to move too fast just because tonight was heavy. I rested my chin on top of her head. Then I'll sleep on the couch. Your door stays open. If you need me, just call. She pulled back slightly and looked up at me. You don't think that's weird? Laya, I said. 2 nights ago I zipped up your dress after walking in on you half naked. I think weird lost control of this situation a long time ago. She laughed through her tears. That night I slept on the couch. Or tried to. At 1:17 a.m. my phone lit up on the coffee table. An unknown number. You don't know her. Laya always makes men think they're heroes. Then she destroys them. I stared at the screen for a long time. Another message came through. Ask her why everyone eventually leaves. I knew it was Adrian. My first instinct was to reply, to tell him to stay the hell away from her, to say something sharp enough to cut. But then I looked toward Laya's bedroom door, slightly ajar. She was curled up under the blanket, face still streaked with dried tears. I turned the phone face down. Morning would be soon enough. The next morning, Laya came out wearing one of my hoodies, hair messy, eyes puffy. She found me in the kitchen attempting to make pancakes. The first batch was already burnt. She raised an eyebrow. You know how to cook? No, but I'm giving it my best performance. She smiled faintly, then noticed my phone sitting on the counter. I slid it toward her without a word. Adrian texted last night. She read the messages in silence. I braced myself for tears, for panic, for her to start apologizing or explaining or shutting down. Instead, she set the phone down calmly. I want breakfast first. I blinked. Really? Yeah, then I'm blocking this number, then I'm calling Tessa, and then… She took a deep breath. Then I'm telling my mom that if she ever brings Adrian into my life again, I won't show up to another family event. I couldn't help but smile. Busy morning. Very busy. I placed the slightly burnt pancakes in front of her. She looked at them. Are you trying to poison me? I'm giving you a reason to stay strong. She laughed, but it faded quickly. Caleb, she said softly. Yeah? I don't want you to become my shield. I sat down across from her. What do you mean? She looked down at her plate. Last night you stood beside me. It helped? A lot. But I don't want to fall for you because you protected me from Adrian. I don't want to turn another man into the center of whether I feel safe or not. I stayed quiet, letting her finish. I want to choose you, she said. Not because you make me feel protected. Because I actually want you. Her words hit something deep in my chest. Because I felt the same way. I didn't want Laya to be the person who filled the empty space Aaron left behind. I didn't want to love her just because she made the apartment feel less lonely. I wanted to love her because she was Leia. The woman who sang off key in the kitchen, who killed her basil plant and blamed the weather, who shook but still stood up in a room full of people and told the truth. I reached across the table and took her hand. Then today we don't decide forever. She placed her other hand on top of mine. Then what do we decide? Today you eat burnt pancakes, you block Adrian, you call your mom. And tonight, if you still want to, I'll take you on a real date. No family, no pretending, no exes, just us. She looked at me for a long moment. A real date? A real date. Laya smiled. Small but real. I want that. That night we went to a small restaurant by the river. No one knew us. No one asked how long we'd been together. No one judged the blue dress or the past or the scars we both carried. Just Laya and me. She told me stories about her music students. I told her about the time I rewired an entire house, only to find out the owner had been flipping the wrong breaker for 6 months and still insisted the lights had attitude. She laughed so hard she nearly choked on her water. After dinner, we walked along the river in the light rain. Laya reached for my hand first. Not for show, not to prove anything to anyone, just because she wanted to. Under the awning of a closed bookstore, she turned to me. "You can kiss me now," she said. "No audience required. Thank you for the updated terms and conditions." She laughed. I kissed her. This time there was no Adrian, no Celeste, no family watching, no performance. Just rain, the smell of old books, and the quiet realization that after a very long time, neither of us was standing alone behind a closed door anymore. The weeks that followed weren't perfect. In fact, they were kind of awkward. The first Monday morning after the engagement party, I walked into the kitchen and found Laya already there, both of us freezing like two teenagers caught holding hands in the library. She was wearing my hoodie again. I was holding 2 mugs of coffee I didn't remember making. She looked at me and said, "Good morning, roommate." I answered, "Good morning, woman I kissed in front of your entire family." Her cheeks turned pink. We had to make new rules. Not the cold, distant ones from before, but gentler ones to protect what we were building. If we argued, neither of us was allowed to hide in our room for more than one night. If one of us needed space, we had to say it out loud. We weren't allowed to use rent money as a weapon during fights. No kissing in the kitchen while the other person was holding a knife. And most importantly, no pretending we were fine when we weren't. There were days when Laya still carried the weight of Adrian. A random text from an unknown number could make her go quiet for hours. A careless comment from her mother could make her pull back into herself. But this time, she didn't apologize for hurting. She learned to say the words she'd been afraid to say for years. "I need quiet today." Or sometimes, "I need you to sit next to me, but don't try to fix anything." I was learning too. I was learning that loving someone isn't the same as repairing a broken circuit. You can't just find the short, splice the wires, and expect everything to light up again. Sometimes the damage isn't visible, and the only thing you can do is sit beside them while they find their own light. And me? I wasn't as healed as I thought I was. One evening, when Laya asked if I wanted to go with her to Tessa's wedding in the fall, I went completely silent. She noticed immediately. "You're thinking about Aaron, aren't you?" I nodded. "I'm sorry," I said. She reached up and touched my cheek. "Don't apologize for having a past." I looked at her. I'm scared of believing in a future again, only to have someone tell me later that they knew it wasn't right all along. Laya didn't make any grand promises. She didn't say, "I'll never leave you," because we were both old enough to know that life doesn't work that way. Instead, she said something much more honest. "If one day I feel something isn't right, I'll tell you while it can still be fixed. I won't quietly disappear from your life." That meant more than any vow. Autumn came. Tessa got married in a glass greenhouse filled with white flowers. Laya sang during the ceremony. Before she started, she looked down at the second row and found me. I touched 2 fingers to my chest. She smiled. Her voice shook on the first line, then grew stronger. Celeste sat in the front row, crying quietly. After the ceremony, she walked over to Laya. "I'm sorry," she said. Laya looked at her mother for a long time. "I know." Celeste continued, "Not the kind of sorry that makes everything okay quickly. I'm truly sorry for liking the idea of Adrian more than I listened to my own daughter." Laya didn't hug her right away, but she reached out and took her mother's hand. For Laya, that was already a lot. Adrian slowly faded from her life. Not because of one dramatic confrontation, but because Laya stopped opening the door. She blocked his number. She saved every message. She made it clear to her family, and most importantly, she stopped feeling the need to explain herself to someone who had spent years misunderstanding her on purpose. 6 months later, the apartment looked different. There were no longer clear borders between Caleb's room and Laya's room. My hoodie started appearing in her closet. Her sheet music ended up on my desk. The basil plant, and the new one, was somehow thriving because I secretly watered it when she wasn't looking. My toolbox sat by the door with a yellow sticky note on it that read, "Warning. User has a tendency to try fixing both light switches and other people's moods." One rainy evening, I came home to find Leia standing in the living room wearing one of my sweaters, holding the blue dress from that first night. "What are you doing?" I asked. She looked down at the dress. "I was going to put it away." "You don't like it anymore?" "No, I like it. But I don't want it to only be the dress I wore to survive Adrian." I stepped closer. "Then what do you want it to be?" She looked at me. "The dress I wore on the night you first looked at me, like I didn't have to make myself smaller." I didn't know what to say. She hung the dress in the shared closet in the hallway, our shared closet. That small detail hit me harder than I expected. A year after the night I accidentally opened her bedroom door, I was replacing the light switch in the living room. The old one had been flickering on and off for weeks. Leia sat beside me, supposedly helping, but kept turning the screwdriver in the wrong direction. I couldn't stop laughing. "Stop laughing," she said. "I'm helping. You're threatening the entire standard of residential electrical safety?" She threw a rag at me. I looked at her, nose covered in dust, hair messy, eyes bright, and the words came out before I could stop them. "Move into my room." Leia froze. "What?" "I mean, we can keep the other room as your music room, but move your stuff into mine, or I'll move into yours, or we can stop pretending we're just accidentally falling asleep on the couch together." She stared at me for a long time. Then she started laughing. "That's the worst move-in with me speech I've ever heard. We've been living together for over a year." "True," she said, "but you just asked me to share a room using the same tone people use when explaining an electric bill." I set the screwdriver down. "Leia Bennett," I said clearly, "do you want to live with me in a way that doesn't involve two separate bedroom doors anymore?" She went quiet. Then she walked over, sat on the chair next to me, and pulled me down by the collar of my work shirt like it was a tie. "I do," she said. "I'm not wearing a tie." "I know, I was just imagining." I laughed and kissed her. That night we didn't move anything right away. We ordered pizza, sat on the floor surrounded by empty boxes, and made new labels for the rooms. Bedroom, music room, and tool storage. Do not touch unless you want a lecture about circuit breakers. Leia looked at the second label and smiled. "You know that room is going to end up full of your stuff, right? You can keep your piano in there. You can keep your haunted outlets." "I don't have haunted outlets." "You say that because you're the one they trust." I looked at her laughing, and for the first time in many years, the future didn't feel like a room that could be emptied at any moment. It felt like this apartment. Imperfect, a little old, windows that stuck, floors that creaked, someone singing off-key in the kitchen, someone making coffee at midnight, doors that had once been closed out of fear, an electrician who always checked the breaker before going to sleep, and a woman who left sticky notes on the fridge like love needed to be labeled to feel real. But now, if a door opened, no one had to be ashamed of being seen at their most vulnerable. Because sometimes love doesn't start with a perfect date. Sometimes it starts with a door opened by mistake, a blue dress, and a half-joking request. "If you already saw, come with me tonight." And somewhere along the way, I realized I had gone with her much further than just that one night. I had gone with her all the way home.